Muted. Or we're muted. How's DC?
So far, so good. Hello from the University of Maryland.
How's National History Day going with our
Gosh,
national?
don't even get me started. We don't have time before the meeting starts for me to start being a proud mama. Max nailed it today.
Oh, nice. I'm so not surprised and proud of him.
Oh, he did so
Nice.
well. And that was after being on that 8th grade trip for 6 days. So I'm convinced he can do anything.
Well, what a wonderful opportunity for him
Yeah.
and to represent Decorah.
Okay, I'll ask before we knock, who wants to read the mission statement?
I can
Do it. Thank you.
wait time.
He's a teacher. Yeah, take the 3 to 4 seconds.
Time.
Okay, it's 5:30. So we will call to order the June meeting of the Decorah Community School District Board of Directors. Carol, would you please read the mission statement?
At Decorah Community School District, we embrace student learning and well-being as our fundamental purpose. We will, in partnership with our students, families, and community, make the world a better place. The mission of the Decorah Community School District is learning, thriving, creating our legacy. The vision of the Decorah Community School District is the Decorah Community School District will be a collaborative, innovative, learning-centered organization, empowering students to embrace their personal strengths and create their future.
Good. Already out of practice, getting out of order, but we'll go back to number 2, roll call. And note that all directors are present and accounted for, with President Goodner joining us from the University of Maryland. So I am banging the gavel in her stead tonight. Whole business, we have none, so I entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda. I second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda. Does anyone have anything they see that needs to be separated? I did not see anything. And I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I so move to approve the consent agenda items.
I'll second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, this is the time for the open forum for communication from the public. I see a large number of familiar faces, but no unfamiliar ones. So unless someone has something they wish to bring up, we will move on. Okay, the presentation. We don't have a presentation this month, so we will dive straight into new business discussion and possible approval of public hearing for SAVE borrowing.
So agenda item A is asking for to schedule a public hearing. At the public hearing, which we would anticipate having at the July meeting. Then the board would discuss borrowing up to $7.5 million against the SAVE funds to go toward extra construction costs for the potential elementary school building. This may seem a little out of order, but what we're trying to do is make sure we know all the funds that we could have available for the project. I'm understanding, of course, the project won't even be on the ballot until November, but this is just kind of one of those getting your ducks in a row so that you know what funds you have available. In addition, this public hearing would be held prior toward having the vote in September, which is the vote to extend the revenue purpose statement. So this is literally a public hearing announcing that we intend to look toward borrowing up to $7.5 million. And I say up to because the district isn't required to borrow this money. We just want to have it available to us should we need it.
So the save is the 1 cent, we would be more commonly known as 1 cent
Yes,
sales
yes,
tax.
yes. And this
And
is
that's been something that the state's had in place for maybe 20 years or something.
at least 20 years. Yeah. Yeah, and so this money is already being collected, already distributed to the district. And what we're saying is, we want to have the option or the opportunity to borrow against this anticipated revenue that's going to come in. And hopefully when we extend the revenue purpose statement, we would be able to borrow all the way through to, I think you did a 20-year calculation, so maybe 2045.
Mhm.
So, but this has nothing to do with taxes, just kind of getting, it does have something to do with taxes. It has to do with the 1 cent tax that everybody in the state pays, is collected, is distributed out to schools. And we're just saying we'd like to have the option to borrow against that in the future.
Mhm.
And I think it's also true. I think it's also true to point out that this really is sort of a housekeeping item. This is something by having a public hearing and extending out the date, that's something that would financially be in the best interest of the district anyway. It's kind of it's coincidental that, we're preparing for a school bond, but these are funds that we want at our disposal.
Yeah, I think it's something every district does periodically. I believe this is the third time that we've gone through this process since I've been on the board, so it's certainly not unusual to be undertaking this.
And again, we're not asking for any more money. We're just asking for authority to borrow the money that we've been collecting.
Absolutely.
Darlene or Kathy or Tim, do we need to have roll call votes or separate votes on each of the items,
No, just on
the package?
the package,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. Anyone would like to offer a motion?
If you make it in one
Yeah.
lump sum motion.
And the motion would be that kind of part, I guess, highlighted in the agenda. The
Well,
resolution fixing the date.
I make a motion that we ask for approval for a resolution fixing the date for a hearing on the proposed issuance of approximately $7.5 million in school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds.
A second.
Okay. We'll roll. Carol,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
thank you. Ron,
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
Aaron,
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, proceed to B, the
you said the public hearing will be
July 8th at, what you said,
5:30.
5:30. Good. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay.
thanks.
Every June, we authorize the payment of year-end claims. Kathy, do you want to explain to us why we do this every June?
It's good to get them off your book instead of building as an accounts payable. So our system lets us do that, and it's just easy to track that way.
And so what we're saying is,
Anything we receive for June 30th, we will pay out on June 30th. Otherwise, if it's after July 1, we'll do an accounts payable and make those entries.
and this would prevent us from doing something like having a board meeting on June 30th
Correct.
to approve bills. So, but yeah,
And then we'll always put the list of the bills the following month, so you will see them in July.
something we do every year. I did add this afternoon, just the 1-page statement from last year and updated it. So you kind of see it's pretty basic. Every school district that I've been affiliated with does this.
I so move
I,
to, Carol, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Cindy.
I so move to authorize the payment of year-end claims.
And I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now the litany of annual things always to be done in June. First, bank depository limits. I presume we're renewing the,
This is the same statement from last year, Kathy, last year we said $9 million. And that would mean that we could have $9 million in Decorah Bank and Trust. And if we went $1 over, then we could put 9 million in Viking State Bank. And of course, we don't have that kind of money, but those are our limits. And those are all the banks that we work with are Decorah State Bank, Viking Bank, Bank of the West, which is now Bank of Montreal. Kirk Brothers, Northeast Security, Farmers Trust, Farmers and Merchants, Community Bank, and then the IJET. Iowa School Joint Investment Trust.
Right.
And we don't use those all the time, but those are the ones that we want to have on our list.
The ones we use for checking is Bank of Montreal and Decorah Bank and Trust. We have savings account at Viking and Current Brothers, and then IceJet.
which is an entity coordinated by the Iowa Association of School Boards.
I'll make a motion that we approve the depository limits for the banks listed. The sum of $9 million each.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next, annual reappointment of our legal counsel.
And I'm gonna recommend that we continue to use Allers and Cooney. I don't know how long we've used them, but I have a good relationship with the folks there and back when Kerry Weber was gone, they gave me a different attorney there who was used to be with a different firm who I really liked working with before, so it was fun to run into Brett Ditchke working at Allers and Cooney. So.
I so move
I
that
move
we
that we-
approve district legal counsel and stay with Allers and Cooney.
And I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next, our designation of our official publication.
And we're gonna stick with Decorah newspapers and Griffiths Media. As our recommended, so then we're signaling that's who we'll use for like this public hearing that we just approved will be published in the Decorah newspaper. And it kind of works out well because that's the main
Newspaper in the
newspaper in Decorah, yeah.
And they do
No,
a fine job.
yes, they do a fine job, but unsurprising to most, you take the newspaper that publishes in your community. Thanks for pointing out the obvious, Karen.
I move that we approve the newspaper publication of our local Decorah newspaper and Driftless Media, Multimedia LLC.
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The 2080 agreement for food service with St. Benedict's. I presume you're recommending renewal?
Yes.
And Tim, I was
That's
reading
awesome.
through this and there's, I didn't notice anything different from previous years and there was nothing highlighted. So I assumed that there were not any edits. Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
it's one of our later motions, but we're looking at pricing on lunches for students and staff, adults in the district. Does this reflect the potential changes that will happen in that, where there's like a nickel increase in the cost of lunch?
And what, do we charge, does St. Ben's charge the same as we
Yeah,
charge?
Yeah, K8. So I think they have the K4 and then 5-8, 2 different prices.
I'm still getting used to having a non-public accredited school in the district I work, and so there's always a question that comes up that I'm glad Kathy's here for.
Right.
I think also to answer your question is part of this 7A talks about is the increase in the milk and those things does reflect it in the next year. Yeah.
I entertain a motion to approve the 2080 agreement.
I move that we approve the 28E agreement with St. Ben's schools for food service from Decorah Public Schools, community schools.
Seconded.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now something with a little more meat to it, the proposal for fees and substitute pay for the coming year.
And so Kathy's chart has a indication of what fees were last year. Going up a nickel on the lunch side. Kind of across the board. And traditionally, you're allowed to increase cost of lunch, but within a certain small range, so typically school districts do that every year a little bit. So that you don't get behind and then get in a spot where you wished you'd raise the lunch prices 3 years ago or something like that. Salaries for teachers, substitutes, then so there's the lunch fee portion. I will pause, offering good wait time and see if there's any questions about that. So then just the substitute salaries, increasing the substitute for teachers, $10. We want to be competitive in that market. And that's kind of where the rate is in the area. And then the rest of these are all substitutes. So like the high school student worker, the teacher associate, the custodian, food service and secretaries. That's what we would pay if they were substitutes. Now, the high school student worker, for the most part, that's summer help. Do you have any high school summer workers during the year? Not that anybody's aware of. Okay, so we're also, by setting these substitute salaries, we're also setting the rate of pay for the summer help. And if you're doing summer help for us, for example, mowing, or we've got a painting crew back for the first time in a couple of years, the high school student rate is $12 an hour. If you're not a high school student, it's $14.60 an hour, because we pay the custodian sub rate for the paint crew. Okay. And so there was a question that came up about what qualifies as high school worker. And I know we discussed that in our meetings. Past practice has been high school worker is somebody who's in high school, of course, or just completed high school and hasn't completed the first year of college. That's what I know past practice has been. Obviously, the board could have a discussion about that. I don't, I know there's people in this room that have had children that were high school workers and got that rate of pay. But I was questioned on it and I didn't know all the history on it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, like it's past practice because it was logical, so I would continue it.
Just a clarification question, Adam. Do we pay student workers when they help at track meets or with other?
The middle school has made payment to some student workers dating back for a long time,
Okay,
but the high school does not pay student workers for trainings.
so does that fall under this, or that's a different rate?
That's a
of-
different-
so It's different than one.
Okay.
Thanks.
So there's any other discussion or questions about substitute pay? And then, we've got the bus driver physical reimbursement is $100 and the accompaniment, which is $12. And I'm gonna defer on what the accompaniment, that's for.
For solo and ensemble contests. Okay, mark every year, and your accompaniments for student performances. For solo and ensemble that could involve several rehearsals leading into the performances, as well as the performances that occur on the third or fourth Saturday.
And is this a competitive enough rate that we're able to find these at companies easily?
It could be better.
Yeah, I was a very low rate for.
Well, and that rate is matched by the booster, so total compensation is twice that number.
Oh, that's,
Correct.
That part is, yes, that part is matched.
But that doesn't mean, we're probably very fortunate in this community that lots of people have that skill set and.
As a result, we need to pay them as such.
Okay.
It's the competitive market in terms of what they get paid for some other companies. Gigs that they have.
It's $12 competitive enough.
Really, the question is $24.
Yeah, there you go.
right.
The closer we would get to a $30 rate.
Didn't we do something, we had accompanied in the piano for years and years and years, and she just retired from that a year or two ago.
Yeah,
Yeah, and didn't we do an increase at that particular, I'm not saying it's, we didn't enough, but didn't we?
yeah, but that, I
That's-
think that's a different,
That's a Schedule B.
Okay, okay. That makes, I knew there was something that we did, I didn't remember what it was.
And you did accordingly, so we could.
And what's that figure? Wow. You know,
It's $30 an hour. Chris Hadley was our collaborative meetings last year. They're replacing her at that rate. That would be like the concert choir, less stuff during the school day as well as concerts. And this is a little bit different type of gig, that's for a specific contest that happens.
If we raise this, would we assume that music boosters would match an increased rate?
I can't speak for them, but I think it's very safe to say that they're.
I feel like this is really an important position for to support our students. And our music program is exceptional. I'd like to support these people who come in at random odd times of the day and.
The other piece I'd add is we have a lot of entries, which requires more people. So when we show up to solo and ensemble contest, we'll take up as many as 4 or 5 of the centers. When we're there for a huge chunk of time because we need a lot of them.
so with the thought that the closer we could get to 30, the better,
Yes.
understanding we're at 24 right now.
Right.
So someone could make a motion and if they wanted to modify that rate, they could say 13 or 14.50 or 14.
1435.
14.35.
I propose 14
So,
an hour.
okay,
Is that a motion?
I am making a motion to increase the pay for accompanist for vocal instrumental to $12, I mean, to $14 an hour from $12 an hour.
I guess it might be best viewed as a motion to amend the salary proposal, which has been put forth.
They-
Yeah. Not approving it right now, but to
Amend it.
change it and then,
We have to bring this back again.
Right.
we could make a motion and approve it.
I think you could make a motion I make a motion
That
to
change.
approve the fee scale substitute history with the one change that the, accompanist rate be $14 an hour.
So thinking a little bit holistically before we get to motion of voting, this event takes all of 6-7 hours. My recollection from doing it myself. We're talking about probably 4 or 5 accompanists. So in grand scale of things, we're talking about $50 here. I would say we could move to 15 and not have a large change in what we're gonna end up paying. That gets to the 30 that Adam has brought up already. And what we're already paying for regular accompanist.
So that is an alternate motion.
Yes.
So I guess procedurally, we still have the first motion on the table.
Which has not been seconded.
Has not been seconded. So if you would support his motion, you would withdraw yours and second his. Not that you need to do that.
You can't second his until she withdraws hers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I will withdraw my motion.
Okay. So now we have a motion on the table from Director Zander to go to 15, which has not been seconded.
I will second that motion.
Okay. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of Aaron's amendment to move it to 15, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Maybe is that headline? Oddness, recalls his knowledge of Robert's Rules of Orders to a T.
Or misremembers. Okay, so that was specific to the last item on this longer list. So we still need to go back to everything, starting with lunch fees. And approve,
You want to put in a whole document with that amendment?
yeah,
That's what you meant to say, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right,
It's
Oh.
approving the document
with one
with
change.
change.
okay, so that was to include,
Yeah, the entirety of the document.
did everyone understand that?
I did.
I didn't.
I don't know if they do it on the East Coast or not.
As long as everyone understood Aaron's motion to mean that and has no concern with their votes.
That it meant the whole document.
Yes. So raising the cost of lunch by a nickel and
Subpay,
sub pay.
everything.
I think because I'm a substitute teacher, I can't vote on the whole document, so
Hmm.
I would.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
for us to have that be a separate vote since I voted and then votes.
Good point.
Good call.
I'd like to amend my prior to be solely representative of changing the document to be $15 an hour for accompanists for vocal and instrumental ensemble contests.
And I can second that.
You can second that. And I assume you just did.
I did.
Okay, all in favor of that specific motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now, do you want to offer the motion for the rest?
Do we want to split it into parts? I also looking at Carol if she would like.
I'm okay to not vote on this.
I move that we approve the 2024-2025 fees and substitute pay document as recently amended.
I'll second that.
Okay, now, ask all those in favor to please say aye.
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 Those opposed to say aye. And those abstaining to say I abstain.
I abstain.
Okay, got it, Darlene?
Yeah.
All right, okay. The good time was had by all. So we can now move on.
Just need to tell you right now up front that I do eat white bread, so I'm not too sure if I can abstain from this or not. But not school white bread.
No, you don't
I'm-
eat school
I'm
white
okay.
bread, okay.
Okay, moving on to bread bids. Will I reopen my file that I accidentally closed?
It's always difficult to get multiple bids for milk and bread, in my experience. We've got bids here and a recommendation from Chad Elliott that we go with Pana Gold bid, because not only does it look the best, but it's complete in providing items in each area. So I'll support that recommendation.
It doesn't do 51% whole grain hamburger buns.
That means the top is whole grain and the bottom is not.
No, plus 1% more.
Close.
I make a motion to accept the bread bid from Panagold Baking Company.
I second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Milk.
So we have received one bid here from Anderson Erickson. That's our current provider. I recommend that we accept the one bid that we received.
I propose that we do accept the milk bid that is from Anderson Erickson of Des Moines.
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the review and consideration of the master contract and handbook for certified staff.
And these are just updates and putting in all the stuff that we agreed to in negotiations. So and I did it as a edit change. So you'll see on page 6 that we're gonna officially call the day after Thanksgiving a holiday versus President's Day. That'll make life a little easier, more consistent with other staff. We added in the language on family illness that was an MOU last year. That's on page 9. And I think that was, and then base wages got modified based on state law, requiring that starting teachers have a salary of $47,500. We still negotiate and have a salary schedule based on minimum salary. You can see that document at the end. So besides the changes on page 13, just kind of being the updates on the salary schedule, there's the last 2 pages. You go to page 21, that looks at the salary schedule, and that you'll see that anything highlighted in yellow represents where those salaries will actually be $47,500 to beat that minimum teacher salary. And then the blue highlighted cells will actually be $60,000 to meet the veteran teacher minimum salary. But by leaving the numbers in, then that helps us do all the other calculations, because we base the Schedule Bs on this. And the current Schedule Bs are in there as well. We might have to bring that back because I think there's going to be some updatings on that. But this is what the master contract looks like at this time. So good.
And the handbook.
Handbook did not change at all, other than updating the dates, and a new title page was created. So it could look like the certified handbook.
Make a motion that we approve the master contract for 24-25 and also the certified handbook for 2024-25.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, the 24-25 classified staff handbook.
And Darlene worked on this. I can say the one thing I noticed when I looked through it is we updated the insurance information Darling, were there other changes that? we should-
Just to be consistent with the certified, we, changed the wording for the family illness and sick. And then just change the salary schedules at the end of the document.
Sure.
That family illness, we did that a year ago, didn't we?
Mhm.
Entertain a motion to approve the handbook for classified staff.
A second. Sorry, I should probably move before there's a
Right.
second. I move that we approve the 2024-2025 classified handbook.
I'll second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next, the work of PLC's handbook.
I'm gonna defer to Dana on this, but Dana was getting the handbook ready and she said, don't you think we should approve the PLC handbook? And I said, absolutely.
Well, we try to update the handbook, different handbooks that we have about every 5 years. And so this was first developed in 2019, and so it's time for that review. There's not a lot of changes to it. Couple things I took out: no longer have a district level PLC team. We no longer have a facilitator of PLCs, which was kind of while she was here. And then went through the links and tested those, and a number of them were no longer working. So had to do some updates and find some new resources to go in place of those. Other than that, it's the same as it was a few years ago.
Thank you for looking on the update.
I move that we approve the PLC handbook as it has been revised for this year.
I'll second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, the amendment to our contract with the social worker.
So, and this is gonna be, this would be just a change in how, we deploy the social workers day. This past year, we had a 60-40 sharing agreement with, Howard Wynn. And, the good news, bad news, she was very effective. We needed her services more time. Then the real good news is her salary is funded by the therapeutic classroom grant. We had it budgeted out where we had enough money for 5 years, even without the reimbursement and the sharing. But then on top of that, we're getting reimbursed for students that are seen in the therapeutic grant that don't have IEPs. So the grant is actually making money. And so we finished this year with $11,000 more than we started after we got the 83,000, after we bought materials for a therapeutic grant and paid a salary, and got reimbursed, and we've been reimbursed for that. So highly recommend that we keep this. We had offered the social worker 4 days a week to Hardwin and and then, so I guess that would be an 80-20, and they were only interested in 2 days or no days, which I fully understand. And so I would recommend that we keep the social worker all 5 days. We miss out on the sharing, but we certainly make up on the need, on the services, and the fact that the grant is making money. That's wonderful that grant exists.
It's wonderful.
We believe that the grant will continue to reimburse us in the years ahead.
Well, I believe, because the governor talks about it, you can never say never. I can tell us they gave us the money up front, which is not usually, grants are usually reimbursable, so they, and Kathy, if I'm overspeaking or misspeaking, let me know. So they allocated the $266,000, we spent it down, and they've already given us the $83,000 in reimbursables. There's been communications where we, like, are you sure? Like, this is fantastic news. And they said, yeah, you'll be able to do this. So can I say it's gonna happen forever? No, I can't say anything's gonna ever happen forever, but, even if they stopped reimbursing, again, we're at 277 and we started at 266.
We have a ways to draw.
We'd have ways to write on, exactly. And usually state grants, you have to submit reimbursables.
We should pay for it and then request reimbursement.
Yeah.
For all the title programs, we do that.
And so,
We had to do that too.
and so this is, what makes this kind of unique is they allocated the money upfront for the initial grant, so we're not arguing.
Are we using the total amount of the money that we are able to from the therapeutic fund in this grant?
Well, they allocated us 266,000. We don't want to spend it all in 1 year. So we came up with ideas that they wanted for the classrooms, and for materials. And then it was like, could we hire a social worker? Well, yeah, we'd love to have a social worker. That'd be great. So the idea was kind of to portion it out, and we came up with, we'd like it to last 5 years at a minimum.
So we can use this for multiple.
Yeah,
years.
yeah. And again, we haven't even drawn down any of the money. We're going, like, if that, like, so if they always reimburse us, it would be like a social worker for infinity. But at least for 5 years. So, like I said, I mean, it's good news. It's great that the grant exists and the funding exists and that the person exists and all that. I wish we didn't have as desperate a need, but I think that's hard to say. Lots of schools need social workers, so we don't have to feel bad about it. It's great that we have that resource available.
If I'm remembering correctly, there is not yet a motion on the table.
And this recommendation is
Correct.
for 1 year. Is that correct?
Yeah, it would be a year to year. So we're just basically recommending that we keep the social worker for 5 days next year.
And terminate the contract with Howard Bennett.
And not renew the sharing
Yeah,
agreement with
not
Howard.
renew it,
Yeah,
yeah.
let's not say terminate the
Yeah,
contract.
but yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Okay,
based on
well,
the
I
funding
would
that we have, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
sorry
You're
about
up,
the,
Sydney.
go ahead, Brian. Go ahead, Brian.
Nope. Well, just based on the funding that we have, I recommend we have a social worker full-time, 5 days a week next year, and that we don't renew our contract with shared social worker with Howard Bennett.
And I'll second.
Just like to make sure we bring this back up in a year so that we can renew this when it comes time again.
Certainly look at it next year. Darlene's really good at putting notes on and reminding me of what we said we were gonna do in a year.
All in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next, approval of contracts for fall and winter Schedule B contracts.
So one of the things that happened when I would change the collective bargaining laws was you were supposed to, instead of automatically renew all the Schedule B contracts, and that's for coaches, like 8th grade football, varsity volleyball, but also the sponsors for FFA and I don't know what we would call those, for all our activities are in our Schedule B. So, traditionally, schools would just be like, oh yeah, that's the person who did it, we issue them a contract. Part of collecting bargaining is the board has to actually approve it every year. So that no one has a continuing contract. I'm sure there were reasons for that, but this is just making sure we adhere with state law and the practice. You only see fall and winter because spring had just concluded and Adam likes to have a conversation with those folks before we take their names to the board. So we'll at least see the spring in July, and potentially we could almost see the summer in July. or we'll see the summer in August.
We'll see him when we see him.
We'll see when we see them. That's a good. So, and we're looking at fall and winter today, and
And there are many open positions here. We don't have to approve this again after those are filled in.
yeah, no, so the open positions will appear on the personnel rec for hires.
Yeah.
Cause they'll come through that way. This is just a bulk way to approve everybody so that Darlene can issue these folks their agreements for these positions.
Yeah, each month there is the personnel listing and the blanks will be filled in month by month.
Yep.
We hope.
Yes, we do.
I just want to also say I appreciate all of the extra work that all these people
Oh, yeah.
put in to do these extra duties as coaches and academic competition coaches, et cetera, because it is what makes, one of the things that makes our district an excellent district and provides opportunities for students that are very enriching.
Absolutely, 100%. I think we're very fortunate in this district and we've got people that are doing things that they're passionate about, because if it doesn't work out to be a very good hourly rate of pay, but it's super important, and it's awesome to see our young people have these opportunities.
And with that, I guess I move to approve the contracts for the fall and winter schedule B.
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Lane changes, this relates to the salary schedule and people having additional levels of education.
And so as you move on the salary schedule, these folks would have earned enough credits, turned them in by now, and they're ready to move to a new lane on this salary schedule. So this would, approving this, we normally, in the past, I guess we've done it in September. We will still see some come through in September, but these folks will be able to issue them a contract with their updated salary figure for 24-25. This will be a new practice for us, but I recommend we do it this way so that, and we've had a request from a person, but just in general, when we know somebody's moving on the salary schedule, it's always nice to get that contract with the bigger number in their hand.
I move that we approve the lane changes for the 24-25 school year for the 3 teachers so listed.
I'll
I
second.
second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, consideration of the bus at home policy.
So, I noticed that this is Decorah News. This was what they saw in the highlight in anticipation of the meeting. So I kind of caught me off guard, but, anyway, so Chris and I have been talking about kind of having the same rules for everybody, being consistent, and when would it make sense for us to allow drivers to keep their buses at home and making sure the district, doesn't have a situation where we allow Ron, because we like Ron, to keep his bus at home, but we're gonna make Brian drive in. And so we kind of put these things together. We looked at it, kind of shared it with the board earlier on. One of the things that we'll do is potentially in the past, we've had drivers, if you drive from your house to your route, so that means that most of our drivers a majority of our drivers drive into work, grab their bus and then do their route. But if you keep your bus at home and you drive to your route, do your route, and you drive your bus back home, potentially those miles from your house to the bus barn are miles that we wouldn't have to put on the bus. And looking that over, I think, I'm gonna look at you now, Chris, but maybe we potentially had a situation in the past where that might have been 50 extra miles a day on a bus.
So we had a couple actually, so we rearranged the route, so we got it to fit, but we just needed a uniform description for the drivers, so that way they know. We're not picking and choosing, so if we hire somebody new or somebody leaves or they switch routes, so we eliminated one of the situations and it was. Between the two, we were probably putting on over 100 miles a day extra, and if you think of what we pay per driver per mile, it's a lot of money. And we really focused this year a lot on saving district money in transportation. So this is one of the big things we want to take care of. So we've got everything set up, situated, so nobody really is too overly upset about us having guidelines. We already implemented it. We just need a policy set. That way we've got something sound. That way when somebody says, well, how come he can do it? Oh, this is why.
And this year, when you implemented it, were there any issues or was it all pretty smooth?
It went pretty smooth. We had one route that we couldn't accommodate, so we had a couple switching around. One person lived over by Ridgeway, but drove up by Highlandville. So that didn't make any sense for that driver to take his bus that far. So we switched his route, so now he drives by Ridgeway. And it actually comes out way ahead for the district to do it that way on that situation. Some of the other ones, it was already pretty streamlined in their accommodations. We just had one, but we're working through it.
Maybe other things to highlight. Certainly if you live out by Highlandville or Burr Oak and you've got a Burr Oak route, it would make sense for you to park your bus at your house every night. But in a scenario by which you grab all the kids by Highlandville, you bring them to town, you drop them off. It doesn't make sense to drive your bus all the way home, and that's where we would just provide either an existing vehicle, or we might look at some cheap runner vehicles so that the bus drivers would park their car here after their morning route, which would they collect at the end of the day, because again, they're driving from Highlandville back to the bus barn, then running over to the school. And that's where we're saving miles as well.
Yeah, so I did some rough figuring on numbers. If we did that with a couple of the routes, maybe 2 of them, 3 tops, instead of paying between $3 and $4 per mile with the bus, it actually, with the payment of the vehicle, it would come out to less than 30 cents a mile, which is pretty decent. I mean, that'd be looking at a very, very cheap car. I mean, we wouldn't be buying a new car. It would be something that is gonna be a point A to point B.
And part of the rules is, if you're taking advantage of that, you're not driving that car to the hardware store and maybe you're just.
It's strictly for point A to point B, which is school to home or bus garage to home.
But I'm looking at this, thinking that this entire policy is an improvement from where we've been, but I still question why in the heck it's our responsibility to provide a school car for somebody to drive during the day. This seems to me, this isn't being done for the benefit of the school district. It's being done as a favor to a bus driver. I'm not sure if I'm understanding it correctly, but.
Well, so 2 things. If we're saying they can keep it at home and they've done drive the route, they need a way to get back to their house. And in checking with our neighboring districts, it was pretty common practice that when the bus, like Turkey Valley, like they get a car that they can drive home. So to answer your question, yeah, it seems a little different, but what we're trying to do is protect the miles on our school buses.
It's also a little bit of a retention kind of a program too.
Yeah, it's like if it's being justified as a retention program, let's be honest and sell it as that. But I think this is, being presented as, hey, this saves the school money. And yeah, it might save us on the one hand, but on the other hand, we're buying cars and having insurance on vehicles and maintaining vehicles. And I don't think that's our responsibility.
We're not planning on buying fancy cars and
Whatever it is, it's gotta have insurance on it.
And we're not providing
And-
that for any other employee who's driving to
Yeah.
work in the district.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I don't know how it benefits us to have a bus sitting out in the country as opposed to having it here. It's gonna drive the same number of miles per day. It's just a question of where it sits at night.
The bus would actually have less miles, correct?
Yeah.
Because you're putting the miles on the car. So that person wouldn't come back into, in the morning to pick that bus up and drive it back home. This looks interesting to me too. I mean, the fact that we have to buy vehicles to make it happen.
I'm not saying we have to.
No.
Yeah,
It seems odd. We've not done this before. And so that part is new, providing vehicles, that part of it, yeah.
Yeah, I totally support that the bus shouldn't be driving back and forth home during the day and then back in the afternoon. But my point is that it should just be sitting here the whole time.
I see what you're saying. I'm not trying to sell this either way.
No, I understand. I see that this is a great improvement for where we've been. But I'm just
The
thinking-
Bluffton route would probably be the prime example. So our Bluffton route is. If she brings her bus here and back, it is. By time wise, you can say from when the time school gets out and she gets on the bus, it's 5 o'clock when they get back. If she takes her bus and leaves it at home, the distance from, I don't know what the exact mileage is from the setting station up by Borough to here, she lives right across the road from Borough. So that distance would actually be cut off each day,
Mhm.
as if she were to take a car. That's the mileage we would save on the bus itself. That's probably my best example. That's all I got really.
Which would be offset by the, to at least some extent, by the cost of the car.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But wouldn't she start her route from home?
She would.
And then she'd go do Borough and whatever and
she'd
then.
go to Bluffton, come back, drop his kids off, and we're already pushing the time limit by going all the way up to Bluffton. Some of the north are open and roll kids up in that area. When she gets back to school to drop off, we're at 59 minutes already on a time limit for the kids.
Mhm.
So then she would leave her bus in town, take the vehicle, go home, and then come back. So that distance of her driving,
So this is
It
about that
started-
middle part of the
Yeah,
day
yeah.
between their routes.
her route would start at her house too. Her route would actually start 0.23 miles from her house would be her first pickup. So instead of her taking the bus from the bus garage, so the distance from the bus garage to her first pickup or her house really is the mileage we would save. So there's only like 2 situations that we would probably be using this in 3 tops. But I'm still streamlining some of the routes there too.
Yeah.
We just got finished with enrollment, so there might be a few changes there.
yeah, that's
So-
that Transversa, right, is the software. Would it, I mean, I would think we would have our objective to have routes begin and end here.
So I ran them both ways
Uh-huh.
and it actually saved, you know, if you do it a weekly projection, a daily projection, I could get those numbers for you. We could revisit this if we wanted to.
Yeah.
But the numbers actually are pretty incredible, the distance we're saving on just a few little things.
Mhm.
But
Because of the software.
yeah,
So what I understand, we've had the software for years and we haven't been using it to its full capability, right?
no, this is a new thing. We just,
It's a different software.
We had one.
Scrub the old software out of your mind. This was a different new software we agreed to last year, last December.
Yeah.
And so Mr. Gordon had used this in Wakan. So, and we feel good because we've already refined and streamlined routes. We think we'll need 2 fewer routes next year.
Mm.
And we'll also get the routes done earlier. And they'll upload into Power School, so they should be ready early August, whereas in the past, we've had to manually put them in Power School, so we love Transversa. So we're super happy about Transversa. And then with regards to bus at home, there's 2 issues here. One is if we allow, I'll pick on Bluffton, if we allow the Bluffton bus driver to keep the bus at home, then the mileage we save is just the mileage of the bus. Is the bus every day going from this place to Bluffton to start the route. And then at the end of the day, you'd run your route, and you'd park.
And our road would end in Bluffton.
Right.
Around, and it would, and
And
yeah,
save that distance, so we're looking at a 30 or 40 miles savings, or just for some numbers, just say that's 30 miles we would save, so if you figure $4 per mile on a bus, you know, 30 miles, that's $120 a day, and if you look at 35 cents compared to a car, I mean, that's considering gas, wear and tear, and, you know, just maintenance of a cheap car, I mean, we're talking like $2,500 cheap.
so the bus at home would save the miles of the bus in the morning going out to Bluffton and at the end of the day coming in from Bluffton. So that's one thing. So we could just have a bus at home policy, but if we don't in the policy say, we'll provide you transportation, then the driver gets done in the morning and drives the bus back to their house,
Yeah,
goes about their daily stuff, and then drives the bus back here. So the savings by the bus at home is the 2 trips they make in the middle of the day when they would go home, come back.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, they
so
would
there's
finish.
certain aspects where it won't work, and I've already established that with those drivers. This would establish a halfway ground with some of the drivers. I mean, not only would it be like you said, you can push it into retention, but it also is saving overall mileage. I mean, I can change the routes around with the software, so all the routes would start from the bus garage, or all the routes would start from where I wanted, but overall projections, it's kind of a win. I mean,
And just because you start all your routes here doesn't mean it makes sense.
no, it actually costs a little bit more to start them all here, so working with the drivers, that's why we established. We needed a criteria, so we have a policy saying you have to fall in this criteria for it to work. It's kind of a backup for me too, that way I don't have to argue with every driver saying, well, he's doing it, I'm doing it, so now I have guidelines that I can establish and show them, as opposed to showing them on software.
And to Ron's point earlier on, there is without a doubt, a retention piece to this. If you think about, if I live out by Bluffton and maybe I want to drive bus, if I have to drive in to get my bus every day, I think 50 miles is, that could add 20 minutes each way. So all of a sudden I'm starting my day 40 minutes earlier than I'm ending it 40 minutes later. So absolutely, there's a part of it that if I'm a driver, in the few instances that it works, I would like to keep my bus at home. And most likely, we're a large geographic area district, so for some folks, absolutely. We're just trying to make sure that we had consistent rules for everybody. We weren't playing a situation where we had different rules for different people and where it made sense. And then we started talking about the numbers, and anytime we can get miles off a big yellow bus and put them on school car, we're gonna save money as well.
Our cost per mile of bus is about $4.
Quick question.
What's the? You go ahead, Sydney.
I'm wondering do we have any school vehicles in our ownership right now that could be used for this purpose?
Yeah, we've got two vans that would fit the criteria, but honestly, we could use those. We could purchase some cheaper vehicles.
And we could run it without purchasing anything new and see how many days we're short.
Yeah, and we could pull data off it and see what this actually looks to be. I mean, if it turns out to be, it could always be amended, couldn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or we could come back and say, oh, we started to run short because we picked up another daily route to, like right now, we lost a route to La Crosse.
Yeah.
And so that frees up a vehicle, and just kind of understanding there's a fluidity, it's a changeability, fluidity. It changes on our need for our vehicles, and
But
lots of days we would have extra vehicles that the drivers could use.
Right, so that's what I was just gonna ask. These vans are never, this is an everyday program that they would need to have a vehicle, or are these vans never used during this?
No, they're used. We assign them. I try to balance them out so that the mileage gets kind of spread out between the vehicles, so we're not focusing on one's running down, while we got another one sitting in the parking lot never being used. I do alternate them. We did lose our Lansing, our special needs, and our La Crosse special needs. That there's a lot of criteria involved in that, but we have those vehicles available in case that does come back again. We actually, it depends on the time of the year too, on sporting events. Sometimes they are out quite a bit, sometimes they're not. But we try to have at least one or two spares around.
And there's been a couple times, at least one or two, that all the vehicles in the district are out, and then we just pay people their, a mileage rate to use their own personal vehicle. And it happens.
So Chris, the drivers that you mentioned that we currently have that live far away, I'm imagining they might live much further than 5 miles away from the bus barn. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, one's about 20 miles.
Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering how much detail is important to make this policy supportive for all the work that Chris is doing. And I don't want to be so, I don't want to put in unnecessary details that are going to open a can of worms. Like I think what we're looking for is efficiency and cost savings. And I think that we should tweak the language to prioritize that and get rid of maybe some criteria that's listed that's unnecessary or doesn't make sense.
Am I right? One of the routes by doing this, you would say about 40 miles in a bus, about 20 miles each way?
Each day, yeah,
Yeah, so you type $4 times 40 is $160
yeah, a day, yeah, that's what.
a day.
I can emphasize that, it's a, like.
You take
adds
that,
up
you take
fast.
that times, the school year and the number of
And then if
days.
you look at that between the purchase of a car, the wear and tear on a car,
Mhm.
and I threw some random numbers together, if we just outright bought a $3,000 beater. And that was in, fairly decent shape, that, 4-cylinder. It come out to less than 50 cents a mile compared to that,
Hmm.
so. I'm good with rerunning the numbers, and we can break this down a little further, that way everybody is. Fully understands everything.
Yeah, I'm just intrigued by the possibilities with Transversa to, restructure routes. As we have things right now where a route begins. That ends 20 miles from town. That might make sense, but do we need to keep a route that begins and ends 20 miles away? I mean, if that's the way it works out and it is saving us money, that's obviously a no-brainer. But I think the way that we're operating right now, I'm still want a little more of a sense of that this is saving us money, and with saving us money no matter how we run the routes.
Mhm.
Would it make sense to go look for some, 2 vehicles you're talking about? Possibly purchasing, to get an estimate on vehicles and insurance. And table this for today and come back to
Yeah,
that
no,
with
we could
those
do that.
estimates in there? Does that make sense, or is that?
And then I can bring you guys some data that shows the difference between, I keep going back to the Bluffton one, because it is a very touchy one, because the students live so far away. And instead of sending her up there for 4 kids, we try to maximize her time up there. So if she goes up there, we gotta get back here within 60 minutes for the kids, for our timeline on the kids. So doing it that way, it works better for us, but there are ways around it. And I could bring you guys data that show you the difference. If we started from here, her timeline, where her first stop, last stop would be, the mileage that it would cost, that also helped us eliminate 2 routes this year, kind of streamlining things. So there is savings there, and I can show you how it's justified. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
You can tell you that, is that anything I've seen in the last year or two that seems to, that by buying some type of a software has made such a big difference, and having someone else take a look at it versus what we've always done in the past. So if we save 2 buses, 2 routes, 2 bus drivers, insurance on 2 buses, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really, really big deal. It's a lot of money.
Yes.
And I, how many school days are there?
175,
Well, anybody got 175 times 160? I don't have-
28,000,
What's that?
28,000.
28,000.
That's what my phone said.
So that's for one. That's for one.
Yeah,
Then you gotta add the 40 cents for the bus, or for a car, a $2,500 car, which you can't buy too many cars for $2,500, but let's say you spent $4,000 in a car.
Already
Still
fixed them all down and down. We were already prepping for
It
this.
still pencils out pretty darn good, right?
Yeah,
Do I think we should have more cars in our fleet? I don't really like that, but, you throw a pencil at it and make a calculated financial business decision. I know insurance costs on a vehicle, $28,000, you're gonna save, we're gonna save $50,000 a year possibly. Right? We surely could,
without, yeah. At a minimum.
That's why I kind of get so animated sometimes.
right? I mean, and we,
And I've seen the numbers, it's just hard for me to, get what I know to you guys in a way that kind of makes sense. So sit down and show you
we
guys.
should buy a little school bus. Here's bluff.
And we appreciate all the work on this, Chris. This is a lot of work for you. We appreciate it.
It saves that, plus it saves seat time, and I think that's something that you said it, but it's good to reiterate again that there is a law. In the
Yeah,
state of Iowa, we have a certain seat limit, and when we were going through the training, we put in the old routes, we were like, ooh, wow, some of these are really close to that 60-minute window, and there's a route still, one of the brand new routes is still at 59 minutes. So-
And if I remember right, Ron, you've been here longest, not as long as I have, but close. We have, for mileage of our school district, are we number 2 behind, Dubuque?
Western Dubuque.
after the consolidation, we certainly went up, but I've not,
Might not be too,
Yeah,
but we're.
we're in the top 10.
We have a lot, yeah, we drive a lot of miles.
That's overall, that's in like states.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going that way down this year. Yeah.
What I like, maybe you're cutting that, make us number 5 instead of 2, so.
Yeah.
That's good.
Baby steps.
I came into here tonight thinking that I'm not gonna really appreciate having some extra cars running, but I think this makes sense.
I'm good with thinking it over. I mean, I can show you guys some more data.
Just a clarification question, Chris. Right now, we'll keep picking on the Bluffton driver. Bluffton driver drives bus from home, picks up all the kids to school, then drives their bus home presently. And then back again.
Actually, it's halfway between, yeah. So, yeah,
But all the drivers that keep their bus at home. How many drivers keep their bus at home?
4, 5.
Five.
5. Used
So
to.
they're,
Yes.
yeah,
No, we're gonna have
right,
3.
but we're saying. I got the answers. Okay.
Okay, so.
I think the numbers make a lot of sense personally to,
If people, some
what
board
Brian
members
was-
want to see some more data, I'm okay waiting, but
I mean, I'm a data kind of person, I kind of geek out a little bit to see the numbers, but I don't think I need to wait to see them personally, so. I think this is a savvy financial move.
what's really.
I was trying to look at, I tried to look at it.
Really
like
well
a
done on.
business aspect.
on
And one thing-
for that.
Not digging deep in the woods, but you're really not gonna, these people are gonna have some almost dedicated cars for them, so they know where it's at and it's there. You're instead of shuffling van around for one particular day and not another, right? I mean, it's kind of,
I'll still try to balance the mileage out though. You know what I mean? I just, it's part of me that gotta keep the vehicle in certain.
like, yeah, that's, like I said, that's, I'm not gonna get into your weeds.
Yeah.
You okay with Ron, or you wanna give us more thought?
I guess. To me, the number one factor in this, it's gotta be saving us money. And if it's only possible to have routes begin and end out, that would make sense. If it's possible to redo the routes and not have that issue and be within our 59 minutes, which is probably the bigger issue. I think we should consider that, but I'm not gonna second guess the calculations that you've done. If you think it saves money, it saves miles off our buses, that's great.
I also trust
I'm,
Chris's judgment and leadership. Chris, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing to use the tools that we have and to retain our good bus drivers. And I don't know, I think this makes sense.
I think as long as we're thanking Chris, we also got to thank Sean for bringing this, this.
Yeah.
Sean, of
software
course.
program to us.
Always Sean.
Yeah, I think we're, yeah, I think it's a great deal.
I move that we approve the bus and home policy as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, further discussion?
Does this policy, oh, it does include district vehicles, so what, are we authorizing them to, if we approve this, for him to start looking for a vehicle?
Well, I think he's already started looking.
I think so everybody feels comfortable about it. Why don't we use the vehicles we have currently, and if we get into a situation where we need to buy a different one, we can address that. And I can work with that pretty well as far as the vehicles that go out and the mileage reimbursement needs to get adjusted. Why don't we just do that for now? And if this, then we'll have valid data too for a follow-up to see where we're at, how the money's actually reflecting, you know, the mileage for the bus. I'm okay with doing that.
And I guess after a year of experience with it, we could see, you know, run the numbers and see if it is saving us money or costing us money.
Yeah.
Just reaffirm that the policy is serving its intended purpose. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Bye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next, retention incentive agreement.
So last year we had two folks that moved into level 3. We hired one and transferred another one into level 3 teaching positions, which are the most difficult positions in the district. We gave them a recruitment bonus. At the time, we kind of discussed but didn't follow through with offering a retention benefit for the one level 3 teacher that was staying in her position. This is the hardest position in the district to fill. Well, I don't know if I should say that. One of the hardest positions in the district to fill. We would, and we've got kind of a plan to fill the one open level 3 position, with a retired teacher coming forward, but to honor, the existing teacher. We talked about how, well, we really should have put this person on a retention incentive last year. And so that's what we'd like to close that gap and put her on a retention incentive, starting this coming year. And Sarah would be here to discuss this, but she's on maternity leave.
Good for her.
Yeah, good for her. Exactly.
I don't have any issues with this.
I don't
I
either.
think it's important that there's criteria of when we do this. Certainly, the level 3s are something that would meet that.
And technically, just so you understand, we had the level 3 position posted last year at this time and didn't get any applicants and transferred someone in. We had it open this year and didn't get any applicants, but we've negotiated with a retired teacher to return and a long-term sub. So we have the best solution of not being able to find a person.
For a 1-year contract for this year,
yeah.
so then we'll still be looking for the next year.
Yeah. So if there's anybody out there that, you know, wants to teach level 3,
You know how
And
many
retired
retired
teachers.
teachers that might be interested?
Bless those retired
Yeah,
teachers.
they're awesome when they come back and sub, and then they could come back and be full time.
You would like to offer a motion?
I move that we approve the retention incentive agreement for Marie Conway for the level 3 special ed position.
Oh, second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That aye was for in favor of, correct?
Was it late? It seemed like I was right on time with everyone else here.
I kinda
Yes,
jumped the
I'm not
gun and
against
said aye
this.
after. Yeah, the motion carries. Next, the discussion of construction manager agent versus construction manager at risk.
So we had this discussion a couple months ago and kind of paused. Or any kind of decision making at the time, I was really advocating for construction manager at risk. I can see benefits to both the construction manager agent, construction manager at risk. One of the concerns I did have was we haven't made a decision and we're to do a construction manager at risk. It's getting a little late in the game. However, I did put in Williamsburg as their tentative schedule. We would be a month behind them. Because they started at May 14th and we could start at June 14th. With that schedule of the 2 postings, you have to do a request for qualifications. And then you have to do the request for proposal. We could still potentially have someone and have them decided by our August board meeting. So I know you folks have talked to lots of people. I made a couple of videos for you to watch. I continue to talk to people. In fact, I talked to John Yelly this morning on this in particular to see if he had any insights, and he mentioned he mostly works with the outside of the building, but he had contacts, so he reached out to people he knew in the field. And one person said, "Oh yeah, I should do construction manager at risk." One person said, "You should do construction manager agent." So then it's like one vote for one vote. I think one of the things that John said that kind of resonated with me is, it doesn't matter what format, it's who you pick, that the people are the difference. And so we'll get folks interested in this either way. And I still feel with looking at a timeline where we're gonna have somebody in place in August, that at the end of the day, I would say construction manager at risk would probably be slightly more of my recommendation, just because we could set a fixed price and we could work toward that. I understand construction manager agents could come in below, but one of the things that I would fear is they know what the budget is. They'll work toward the budget and probably won't come in low. So, but I'll open it up for board discussion because I know that this needs to have a good, robust discussion.
Tim, thank you so much for recording the meetings that you had with a few different companies. That was really helpful for me to watch and rewatch and think about each scenario. One of the biggest takeaways that I heard between the 2 options was the administrative responsibilities, where construction manager agent, those admin responsibilities would be on the district, and construction manager at risk, that responsibility would be with the experts. And I really question how much admin capacity we have. Of the limited capacity that we do have, is it best to put on our team, or do we want to have that come from an outside expert? And I see a lot of benefits coming like that being shouldered by an outside expert. But I'd like to hear from you and Kathy and others to speak from your own perspective.
Kathy, you were involved in one of those meetings. Do you have some input that you'd like to?
I can see it both ways with them getting involved in the construction process, looking at, different savings and how to do it with the different companies. But I can see it on the backside too, because with the high school reconstruction or addition, I mean, we were always looking, Reggie did a wonderful job looking at what ways we could do different things. I don't have a preference either way.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on this and I kind of like working with this type of stuff and And I looked at those videos at least three times, I think, and I looked at them right before I came here again, because I really wanted to get the understanding of it. And you're right, Cindy, the hard bid has our building and grounds and Kathy and people, more involved. And the second, the next involvement is a construction manager agent. They're a little less involved. But with the at-risk, you're hiring and using these people and since we don't have somebody in Greg's position, Greg's just retired. So that causes some problems as well. So we don't have that expertise. Kathy's busy. The construction manager with risk, you're way less involved. They vet the billings and those type things and we pay them and they pay them versus us paying them on the agent. I'm kind of upset with ourselves just because we did get ourselves behind the gun here. We probably should have, if we were going to look at the construction manager at risk, we probably should have been doing this, a couple months ago. The timeline that you have, Tim, is right. I've got another timeline that you and I both saw before. The problem with that is with that Williamsburg one, that's when there's also some negotiations and stuff that goes after that too. So that could be another 2 weeks to maybe a little bit longer before you really get them on board. Problem with, you could, during that negotiation period, where I guess you negotiate the fees and stuff a little bit. Even though I know we have some examples of what those fees might be. I know that construction managers can still work with Nick and help design the program and the things once we selected them, even while the negotiation is going on. Whoever would have it, I'm sure would love to do that because they want to see the finished product as good as it can be. I'm just construction manager period in general. We're gonna be we would like to really know what our costs should be. We'd like to have a more firm figure before we go out to a bond, right? Both the construction manager at risk and the construction manager agent both do that, and they work together very closely with the architect. They get some fairly firm figures. I know that the at-risk, if we got an at-risk figure from them prior to the election, we know what we kind of know what our bid would be, right? So I would have liked to have worked in the construction manager at risk over the last month or two and be further down to this selection period, and then know that we have enough time to have a really good finished product. But if we do this, the timeline, there's a lot of different things. We as a board, we got to be involved with it and have multiple meetings to get it done. I have no problem doing that whatsoever. But it's there's a criteria, there's waiting periods and things we have to do, and we have to vet them. We have to rate them and then let people know what we're basing our criteria on, and then select them and then go forward with it. So definitely think we should do a construction manager. But if we're going to do a construction manager at risk, we're going to have to be really committed to move forward and get that. And we got to really get on it and be committed to doing whatever it takes to get that done.
I think we have a lot of time. I've been sitting on the facility committee for the last several months, and I feel really positive about the work that Emergent is doing. I know that from this point, Nick is at a point of making recommendations built on educational philosophy and the requirements of how many square feet it takes to educate kids and put together a building. I don't think that I think there's plenty of time to reap the benefits of hiring a construction manager as part of this final design process. I think that I'm excited that this is on the agenda tonight because I do want us to make a decision. And if we are going to go this route, I want us to, move as quickly as we can. But to further refine the preliminary estimate of what it will take, But I think that the real benefit that comes from a construction manager is the support that we see in final design, which final design is yet to come, and then through the construction project. So I guess I don't think that we've lost too much time, but I think it is really important for us to talk about this tonight.
Yeah, I spoke with Nick Hildebrand, and the sense that I got is that if we don't have somebody by the time that the project is going to bid, that's too late. But that we are not too late.
Yeah.
At this point, it's appropriate that we exercise, all deliberate speed to go through the process, but we haven't lost anything yet.
And to
Yeah,
clarify to the
exactly.
to clarify to the public, we are not going to bid in November of 24. That is simply when we are going to vote. The project will not be bid for at least, for months to come, months and months, which makes this project really complicated. Schools are hard because the public takes action to vote yes or no. It could be more than 12 months ahead of time. So, yeah, there's a lot of planning and design work yet to come. All of it, actually.
The other thing I think is important to emphasize here is we're not committing any funds now.
Right.
If the bond issue doesn't pass, this has not cost us money. We're not getting the cart ahead of the horse. We're not spending money before we know that we have a bond issue approved.
Which is important. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Did Nick have any opinion about the different construction manager agent versus?
He was advocating for at risk.
Has he worked with a construction manager previously?
I think he has with one or two now. The thing is, this is, less than 2 years old, that this was even an option under Iowa law. So there
For
haven't been
schools.
any coming
For
through
schools,
the
yeah.
pipeline yet. But yeah, I think as not to put words in his mouth, but I think it's something where a few years from now, this will be the norm. But as mentioned, it takes a long time for these things to proceed. And from July of 23 is all of this has been legal.
And
Excuse
it
me,
has
20.
been legal in our bordering states, right? This has been practiced in Illinois. I think Wisconsin as well.
And it's been common practice in other entities like hospitals,
Yes,
et cetera. It's just in the school structure.
Colleges, Iowa State, both use construction managers at risk, and it works well for them. They say that one of the gentlemen said that the people who are really watching their money use construction managers over the formal bid process as well. So, yeah, I'm all for the construction manager at risk, but we need to get going.
I'm all for it. I think the concept is sound. Like you were saying, Brian, I think this maybe puts some more on our shoulders in the weeks, months ahead, but that's the important work we do.
I think it puts more on our shoulders between now and the end of this year.
Yeah.
And takes a whole lot off of particularly Kathy's and Tim's and everyone's thereafter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
From looking at all of the information, I think that the most important thing, I'm all for having some kind of construction manager. And I think the most important thing is to really find a good one who is willing, who is a very good listener, a very good communicator, and will really take our priorities for what we, our facility committee and our board and our community think are the most important priorities for this building. Because early on, that we have to set a guaranteed maximum price for the construction manager at risk, and they cannot go over that price. So if there are any cost overruns, then it's from my understanding, we will have given the responsibility for coming in under that price to the construction manager at risk. That's one of the main differences between that person and an agent. So we would want to really be clear about what our top priorities are for what we must have in this building. And maybe what would be the things that would be the optional list at the end. You know, we want a durable roof, and we want you know, optimal learning environments for the students. We want it to be energy efficient. Like, there's some things that we won't compromise on. I think as long as we're clear with whoever we would hire and clear in our process as we're putting out and going through the process with them, I think that that, you know, it could be really a very helpful, vital person for us to pull everything together.
Well, I think,
Sounds like we're all on the same page.
I think
Yeah.
everyone has expressed a preference, or CMAR.
So my question would be, and I don't know, I don't have zero idea what happens. So we publicly disclose the intent and the criteria of what we want to use. This is one of those, that people give that to us. And do that in a minimum, that's 14 days. And then the publish and request for qualified statements is within 13 days, takes between 13 and 45 days. Who is gonna help us do this process? Especially we want to be very, you know, steadfast and make sure it gets done. Is there a?
Nick indicated that he had the documents that he could help us with this project.
So I think he's working on one right now.
Yeah,
Where he's working one is
Yeah,
is
yeah.
a CMA at risk?
No, it's at risk.
It is at risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's
So
gone through, probably his first time he's gone through, at least he's
Yeah.
familiar with it now, okay? He can help us with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is
That's
that
great.
something our attorneys would help us with also, or?
They could, I'll start with Nick, and making sure, see what documentation he has and, I'm more than happy if there's a couple of board members that want to come through and work the timeline with me. We could certainly do that and get it set up.
I think it's
And,
not, it's a matter of attention to detail, right? Attention to detail. I don't think
and
that
this-
it's rocket science, just making sure that we are following all the policy and procedures.
It's also supported by the Construction Association. You know, so there's, yeah, it's been used, it just hasn't been used much for public entities, so,
Well, for public schools.
public schools, that's correct, schools. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I would entertain a motion to do what everyone says they want to do.
I make a motion, we proceed with the construction manager at risk and we move in that direction and do whatever is necessary to move forward.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Did it again.
It was in harmony in my ears. Aye,
Yes, okay,
for yes.
okay. And now opposed. Hearing none. Next,
That's awesome.
tell us about our insurance company doing some,
So, the insurance company, has indicated they would like the district to address the Cary Lee roof. And so we want to follow that recommendation. The roof we're talking about, I put a picture in there, but I can describe it as, I would say it's the main roof of the building. It sits over the, you know, the part of the building, so, I think it's, well, did I put perimeters or what's that?
The west side of the building.
West side of the building, thank you. We, contacted, well, Greg had contacted Moss. Academy was on site doing the middle school roof and they went up and I think they would have done it the next day. I said, well, hold on a sec, let me get board approval. Now, there was two things, there's two bids in there for $16,000. They will just repair it and get us through get us, okay with the insurance company. But for $58,220, they would do a roof overlay, which is basically be a re-roof, and we would get the 20-year guarantee. So, couple things, I did reach out with Greg, retiring, I did reach out to Moss and just said, hey, this is gonna be on the board agenda next Monday. So I did reach out to them, and I would say the other part is with the two proposals, which we need to do one of them. I would recommend the re-roof and get the 20-year guarantee. I would say Sean's nodding his head because we've talked about this a lot, and then Kathy and I also talked about the getting a 20-year guarantee and then just being done with it would be our preference. So that's our recommendation, is that we do the re-roof and the 20-year guarantee, and then and as outside sources go and checking with people, I checked with my college roommate who sells roofing materials in Minnesota and isn't our vendor at all, but he said, yeah, you want a re-roof.
And
And we
does-
want a 20-year one.
And we want a 20-year warranty, yeah.
you know if Academy Roofing has capacity and availability this summer to complete the middle school project?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're gonna be done in 5 weeks.
Well,
They
that's
are not
great.
messing around. Yeah, they're from Des Moines, and they're paying for their people to stay here, so they're started this project. And when I said something like, you know, we'd be done by August 23rd, he kind of looked at me like I was crazy and said, no, we're gonna be done. I guess he said 5 weeks, so isn't that like mid-July?
Hmm.
And I don't have any doubts. I mean, they've got their own crane. Right? Mr. Albers was very impressed that they bought their own crane.
I don't know if I said that. I'm impressed with them, but.
But whatever, it wasn't the kind of thing where they said they'd be here on June 4th. And maybe one guy showed up and stood around and waited. No, they were ready to go. So absolutely, that project's getting done. And they were on the roof last Monday with us. And if we had said, go ahead and repair it, they would have done it on Tuesday. So.
Well,
Sometimes
I'm
that's
not-
not good.
Yeah.
We were just sitting around waiting for a roof. So, yeah, I'm sure these guys are great. One thing, I just read this proposal in the contract, and now they're retired, I don't have anything else to do, I just contract, but part of it, you showed me, and we talked about the situation that Employers Mutual said, it's pooling in a corner, and that's not what they want to see, and they want to get it to the drain, right? So, and I'm 100% think we should go forward and replace the roof. But part of the contract, remember, it says, the owner shall investigate and determine prior to the beginning of the work of this contract, whether the roof is designed for positive drainage. I'm not too sure what your qualifications are to go up there with a level on top of that roof and make sure we have positive drainage, but isn't that their job? I mean, they're telling us that we need to make sure that this roof is gonna drain.
Drain, yeah.
So, and so due to settling and things, but it's not, so I think, we should call them out on that number 9 and say, listen, you guys have been on this roof. You need to let us know that this thing is going to drain properly, because we need to satisfy our insurance company for one, and they're saying that it's okay for puddling to be on the roof. It still is effective. Employers might not buy that.
Okay.
I think that clause is there as kind of we are assuming that it will drain to the center. If not, we have a right to come back for additional work because we didn't guarantee you that.
Yeah, I think they should know before they start that it's gonna drain, right?
That, I wonder if it also is including that the drains aren't plugged with, sediment, debris, and that they're functioning. I think that's another part of that statement that.
Could be, but this one, if you can read on it, says Academy Roofing can design a tapered insulation system for better drainage, but this may not help entirely, and the roof may need architectural and structural inspection. So Or sign the contract.
And it goes on to talk about the warranty, and if
Yeah.
it's not done, then this might affect the.
No, just the
Yeah,
opposite. I think it says the opposite. If I remember right, I'm sorry not to. Is not indicative of a defective roofing system to have ponding and water, nor does it normally affect the manufacturer's warranty. But if the academy is not contracted to do the work, inspections on ponding will not be the fault of the academy roofing. I think what they're saying is ponding, we think ponding is okay, and it won't affect your warranty. Is that?
These are questions I'll ask Academy.
That would be
Yeah,
great.
so, if there's a,
Good call.
if for just the timeliness, if there's a way to make a motion that says.
Oh, yeah.
Providing resolution of number 9, Mr. Gordon or I. One of us will work on this in the morning. I've got the guy's cell number, I could be me.
You have to deal with the other one, the last item, so I think.
Yeah, I think they've been on it, but they pulled that or some resolution on that.
It's kind of impressive, their owner comes up to the project, like he's here almost every day.
Yeah.
He was one of the guys that met us up there, so that's pretty good. But he knows stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and I know, Shive Hattery, who's the engineer on this project, or architect, engineer, designer. Because remember, this is, the middle school roof is large enough, we have to hire an engineer or an architect. They were pleased or excited that Academy Roofing got this bid. And so they felt really good about them getting this bid. And kind of, among other things, it was a competitive bid, if you remember. The bids were kind of all in the same spot, that we had to go with the lowest, and they were excited that Academy was the lowest.
You just don't want employers to come back and say, we're still ponding there, you didn't do it.
No.
That's
Yeah.
very good. Okay.
Yeah, looking at the last clause of that paragraph 9. But if Academy is not contracted to do these inspections, ponding will not be the fault of Academy Roofing. So the solution is hire them to do those inspections.
Right.
Which I think we just clarify that, oh, by the way, you're doing those inspections, right?
Let us, yeah. You don't want ponding.
Do you want to make a bid? Do you want to make a?
Sure. And I'm not
motion
gonna
with
put
the
that,
number
I'm not
9?
gonna put that in there, you just have to work that out, but,
A clarification question quickly before
Hmm.
anything else. So we're saying we're going to re-roof this specific section of the roof, not a larger section.
And this, in general, this is how you'll normally see roofs come in summer projects. You'll see them come in smaller portions under the threshold. And
Yeah,
then we
not
don't have
the mass of what the middle school is, so okay.
And nothing against hiring Shive or any other architect, but every other school district I've worked in always does their roofs in sections, and you just keep them under the threshold. So this is a good example of something that won't be our summer projects next year, because we did it this year.
Well, part of the reason why we're looking at this one section, if you look at that aerial, the south area that's like symmetrical on the southeast, that was one building. And then the area that we're fixing now was another building several years later. And then the gym, which is in there, was a few years after that. So this effectively is like 5 buildings pieced together. So we don't have to do the whole thing because they're all separate roofs.
I make a motion, we approve Academy Roofing's estimate to replace that portion of the roof for $58,220.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We just a straight motion.
Just,
Just a straight motion. Okay.
superintendent's report.
Superintendent's report, we've talked about elementary facility committee. We have scheduled a special meeting for next Monday, June 17th at 5:30 here in the boardroom, where we'll receive kind of an update from the facility committee. They'll let us know how they're coming on the project and, or how we're coming on the project and where we're at with that. So we'll, invite all facility members to that meeting, but we'll have a couple of spokespeople. It does overlap with the city council, so we understand that, the mayor and Steve Zittergren will be at in chambers that night, so. But we look forward to getting that update and being able to start sharing more information as we continue in this process. Buildings and grounds update, I just put in there, Greg Schaller announced his retirement. His last day was last week with vacation and personal days built up. And as kind of noted, Sean Gordon is the interim director of buildings and grounds. We accepted his resignation tonight, Greg's resignation tonight, so the tentative posting can switch over to just, it was tentatively posting, because you always post things tentatively until board action. And so we got that out on Monday of last week. So that's been out there.
Is that going into Decorah's paper, Decorah paper in different places as well? Greg's position?
Goes on Iowa Works, and I believe we've got it going in the paper, but if not, we will make.
It was in the work paper and I believe, free fall.
That's fine. Good. So, we're eagerly waiting for those applications. Some information about bank deposit, because the question came up. Now, just kind of reminder on the 24-hour lot. We technically own that land now, but the agreement with the city was they would kind of maintain it, so they plowed it out last winter. But as just kind of a point of reference, while we support recycling in the community, we're probably not gonna maintain that lot. Put money into that so they can recycle. But I also, last time I talked to Travis, he was gonna work with them to maybe find a more permanent location for those recycling bins.
Does Travis know that we've had this request from Winnebago County Recycling?
I sent it to him. I think he was out last week because his email bounced back.
Winnebago County's got plenty of piece of equipment and dump trucks and buy lots of rocks. So I think if they wanna block that parking lot for their use, I think it'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to be a good neighbor, but at the same time, you have to be careful with our resources. So, other than that, I just kind of put in what language would be on the borrowing the save, because there was a question on that. And then one of the things that we did again this year, but maybe teachers forgot, was we had issued the corporal punishment document. It's an Iowa code that teachers are notified that about every year. And it's a new part, so we just put that in there with their contracts this year. I think some people were questioning why they got it, so just kind of as a notice to the board that we'll do that every year because it's state law. And those are my notes and updates.
All right.
What's the LGRP?
Yes, that's our local group risk pool. That's where we're buying the energy from out of our management fund. So it was I think we did the 18 months. So just kind of letting you know that that's where that bill was. Thanks for asking on that, because we did put that in there. And I believe Kathy did some energy comparisons. Of course, the problem is you can't look at what we paid for energy. You have to look at the therms and do the math forward on that. But the benefit of paying out of the buying our natural gas through the risk pool is we use management funds to pay for those and not general funds.
Didn't we say to do that 18-month or 2-year contract?
We decided about last December. So they finished out, they're finishing out this year at the end of June, and then we'll have one more year where we're signed up for it. And then we'll revisit that at the, next year at this time.
Yeah, then we can do some actual calculations, see if it,
See where we're at with it.
the actual cost versus which fund come out of that. Perfect.
Thanks for asking. I kind of forgot I put that in there. And I guess while I'm thinking about things Dana had provided that we had talked about curriculum review. So we just updated and Dana provided those. I think she'd already emailed, but I wanted to put them in the report. So we had it. So thanks for that, Dana.
Okay, Kathy.
that was the segue into my report. There was a report on energy costs for the district. It doesn't have all of May's or June's yet, electric or gas bills. We do have access to Black Hills Energy, so I'm going to go in at the end of the fiscal year just to see how many therms were used, so we can make at least a comparison of the therms used too. Otherwise, I'm the start of my closeout mode for our school district in June. We have the June and July, or the July and August payrolls that get paid at the end of this month. So our expenditures in June look rather high when you're running three payrolls, but it's normal. Take a look, our cash balances as of last year about this time is about $2,000 difference.
Wow, that's consistent.
Yes, very consistent.
Especially with all the changing facilities that we've had in that
Correct.
time period.
Mhm.
I thought it was interesting that I know we've talked about being one of the largest users of electricity in the community, but it was very interesting to see our 2022 to 2023 electric bill was $408,000. So I would think if we can, if it works and economically feasible and return makes sense, solar might be something we might look at and learn to build.
Mhm.
That's a good point. And geothermal possibly too.
Okay. Well, we have reached the end of the agenda. So we will thank our far-flung president for joining us when she has many better things to do, and we'll adjourn.
Thanks, Ron. And all.
Thank you, Sean, for your multiple hats that you wear.
Yeah.
We should get
We're